One question I've been asked a few times that I perhaps haven't answered fully is what to say about practicality. People say, it's not really a question, just a statement, that putting notes out, videos of just individual notes, is not practical, or practicing by implication is not practical. I don't see how people would say that for any other form of exercise. And they put vocal practice in some sort of other mental category. But it seems to me many types of art, and singing included, are quite practical. They're certainly useful. They're just useful to people other than the artist because there aren't enough means of protecting intellectual property. If people were uniform or using a level playing field in deciding what's useful or practical, then they would make the same remarks that they do to me on the channels and in the videos where people have taken my material and put it into their videos. But I've never seen that happen. I've never seen someone who steals my work being told that what they do is impractical. Our standards, perhaps, of what is useful and what is not are thieving standards. They are based on the idea that something isn't valuable until it's stolen, and it's not valuable except to the person who steals it. And we see so much, especially on the internet, through this criminal lens, perhaps, that people lose their sense of perspective as to what's valuable and what isn't. We don't question the value of stealing. You could say you're cheating yourself because you're taking a shortcut that doesn't allow you to expand your creative abilities when you steal. Which it's not practical because you're not developing your own creative skills when you steal. And it's not good for society as a whole. It's not practical if everybody's trying to steal. And yet this seems to be completely unquestioned. We have no other frame of reference almost. And when you see something that isn't stolen, you don't know how to classify it because it's so rare. And perhaps that's behind the idea of the song. Songs eventually have to go into public domain. Whereas I feel if I just do no individual sound that's not in some ways even artistic work, then it shouldn't be subject to the same copyright restrictions or lack of restriction that it eventually goes into public domain. I would think that my voice and myself should always be private and should always be protected, particularly if I'm not infringing on anyone else's capacity to create something just by making a basic sound. There are many practical reasons, I think, why people should be able to make these high-pitched sounds. They're very easy to hear from a long distance, and they send out a basic signal, and they promote laughter, which is quite practical. Medically speaking, it's been called the best medicine. But jokes are perhaps the most poorly protected form of creation. They're the hardest to get paid for and the easiest to pass on, and the ones that people think the least of when they pass on. And I think in some ways comedians are the most poorly rewarded of performers, in that their work just gets passed around by word of mouth and they don't get anything when it's paid, and they got to make something new each time. They certainly have a strong incentive to create new material all the time because a joke is not as replayable as something like a song is. But in terms of the workout you get, the buildup of one's creative muscles, certainly having to always come up with a new joke is excellent training in that way. Better so in some ways than being a singer.